All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Okay. This is week 6. We'll be covering white balance tonight. Quite a bit to cover. You are going to be ending with a group assignment as you leave tonight for white balance, so you'll actually get your assignment done before you leave as far as your take-home in-class assignment. We've went over a little bit on white balance so far, how do you use different types of white balance, whatever your camera has. So, sunlight, shady, tungsten, and you played around with what that does to all different types of settings that you might be in. And tonight we're going to continue on that white balance journey as far as how it works. So in week 6, we're going to go ahead and go into there. And in the notes area for week 6, there's 3 links I have on the overhead. You can bring them up on your screen, or you can just watch on the overhead because it'll be recorded here. The first one's a white balance PDF. Second one is a website that gives an interaction to white balance we'll look at. And then the third one is some examples of white balance of what it does to photos. So it has like 5 or 6 photos per setting, and each photo has the actual white balance setting on it. So the first one we'll look at is just the PDF version here on white balance. And let me go ahead and download this so we can view it full screen. Okay. So white balance is the aspect of digital photography that most camera owners don't understand or use. And so, but it's something well worth learning, as it can be a real impact on the shots that you take. So for those who have been waiting or avoiding using white balance, we're going to look at it this week in detail and in depth. At its simplest, the reason we adjust white balance is to get colors in your image to look as accurate as possible. So the true white of the image brings out the color. If you don't have true white, if your camera doesn't know what true white is, it can't bring out true blues, true reds, true oranges, so on and so forth. So why would we need to get the color right in your photos? I'm glad you asked. You might have noticed when examining shots after you take them that images come out with an orange or a blue, yellowish tint. Despite the fact, bless you, that to the naked eye the scene looks quite normal. But as we've said here since the beginning of the semester, that your eyes are deceiving. We fill stuff in. But the reason for this is that the image has different sources of light and a different color or temperature. And fluorescent lighting adds a bluish cast to photos, whereas tungsten, the old-fashioned bulbs, have a yellowish tint to the images. So we see some Johnson baby powder here and baby lotion, the spectrum of those 3 photos, all taken in different ranges of white balance. Some from the truest color here to maybe a tint here and tint here. So depending upon the white balance brings out the different colors or temperature. So we generally notice the difference in temperature because our eyes adjust automatically. So when we walk in a room, our eyes automatically adjust to whatever temperature's in the room, whether it be cold out, it could be even outside, cold outside, hot inside, our eyes adjust. So unless the temperature is real extreme, a white sheet of paper will generally look white to us. However, a digital camera is not clever enough to make these adjustments. And so what you've got to do basically is adjust for that. So for cooler, like bluer or lighter colors, light, you tell the camera to warm things up, and in warm light, you tell them to cool things down. In film cameras, what you would do is you would have 2 choices, tungsten or daylight, and that was it. Adjusting white balance, different digital cameras have different ways of adjusting. Up to this point, you've only used the auto portion of white balance. You're going to use tonight the manual portion of white balance. If you've not used that yet, we'll be playing with that tonight. And there's different ways to adjust the white balance to get the camera's manual out and look at the specifics for your camera. But for the most part, they're all pretty much basically the same when it comes to setting a manual white balance or an auto white balance. And so almost all digital cameras have an automatic or semi-automatic mode that makes the adjustment. So here's some presets. You'll notice on some of your cameras some of these presets. The first is auto. This is where the camera makes a best guess on the shot by shot basis. You find it in most situations. It's worth venturing out and on trickier lighting. And for the most part of it, it's got good lighting in the shot. Like it's not too bright, it's not too dark, just good lighting. Auto works pretty good. Tungsten, this mode is symbolized by a little bulb for shooting indoors, especially under tungsten incandescent lighting. These are the old-fashioned bulbs. And generally, it cools down the colors in the photos and adds some blue. Fluorescent, like in here, compensates for the cool of the fluorescent light and will warm up the shot. You have two options fluorescent, most of yours does, normal and halogen. You might even have LED as an option on some of your cameras. Then daylight sunny. Not all cameras have this setting, but most of yours do. And when it's hot outside, it warms up a shot, adding a yellow-orange tint to the actual bright color of the sun. Cloudy, this setting generally warms things up a touch with the daylight mode, more than the daylight mode. Flash, the flash of your camera can be quite cool. And the flash WB mode, which is a flash white balance mode, warms up the shots just a little bit. And then finally, shade. This is the white balance that is generally cooler or bluer. And when you're shooting in direct sunlight, this mode will warm things up just a little bit. So let's talk about manual white balance. In most cases, you get a pretty good accurate result using the presets within your white balance camera. And up to this point, that's all you guys have used is the presets, which is fine. And I wanted you to see what the presets do to different settings. But most of your cameras do have, not all of them. So if yours does not have a manual balance, we're going to look at your cameras in just a second. We'll adjust the lab and things for you, so don't worry about it. But most of your cameras, even your smartphones, a lot of times will have a manual white balance that you can use. So the way that this is used varies by models, varies by the camera. But what it is it looks at the white within the shot, and it needs some reference point for that white. And so sometimes you have to give it a reference point. So you can buy yourself a gray card, or what I'm going to hand out now is a white piece of paper, because that's what I use in my photography, which works fine. You can also go to a camera shop and get gray cards, but I've never bought one over the years. I've always just used a white piece of paper. So I'm going to pass out a white piece of paper. I want you to fold it up twice. Fold it up twice to where it's square. You already have one over there? So just fold it up, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. And this is going to be your reference point in just a second for the manual mode on your camera. And if you don't have a manual mode, you can look at your neighbors when they do theirs here in a second. Here we go. Okay, so you should take this paper, hopefully, and fold it in half. And fold it in half again. And then you can keep that in your camera bag for your white. But did you not get one? Oh, sorry, skipped you. There you go. So let's look at some photos first before we actually do the exercise. I wanted to give you the paper, though, ahead of time here. So let's look at the following two shots. The first shot is taken with some books taken in auto white balance mode. The first one, auto white balance mode, which you've taken camera photos a lot with that. What colors, what tint does this have on the photo? Just yell out or blurt out what you think the color tint is on these books. Kind of a yellowish, right? Kind of yellow, maybe a little orangish kind of tint. So this first shot is taking auto white balance. The light in my room is 3 standard light bulbs. As a result of the image, it's quite yellow or warmish. So the automatic setting has not been perfect in this setting. So this will be like in a closet or against a wall where there's not much light, no direct light anyway, which we all have areas in our home that have this type of lighting. So after taking this photo, holding up a piece of white paper to the camera to tell it exactly what the color white should look like, then taking a second shot using that manual white balance, let's see what the true colors now look like. Okay? Specifically, I want you to notice the white here in this book here, the Odell Back to the Road book. That's where you can really tell the difference. Here and here. Big difference there from white to white. And the reason for that is your sensor does not adjust like your eyes do. When your eyes see these books, it sees it like this. When your camera sees these books, it sees it like this with old-fashioned tungsten lighting. Does that make sense? And so you're using a white balance to actually tell the sensor in your camera what true white looks like. And when you set a manual white balance in your camera, you use a piece of paper. We'll actually go through the steps here in just a second, how to do it exactly. So if you have a question, we'll go over that camera by camera. You can also take a picture of a white piece of paper and store it as an image and use that from that point on as your source for the white balance, for manual white balance. Somebody have their hand up back there? No? Okay. And so let's look at some more creative ways to use white balance.